My hands won't stop smoothing the front of my dress. It's a nervous habit I've had since I was 9 years old, standing in the kitchen doorway while my mother read my report card out loud, and my father nodded along until he got to the part about the science fair. First place, regional level. He'd looked up from his coffee and said, "That's cute, sweetheart." And then asked my brother if he'd seen his work gloves. I'm 31 years old now. You'd think I'd be over it. The ballroom at the Hartwell Inn smells like gardenias and hairspray. My aunt ordered centerpieces that are genuinely taller than I am. White roses and eucalyptus spilling over gold vases, candles flickering at every table. The whole thing must have cost more than my first year of grad school. Around me, 200 people in cocktail attire are finding their seats, greeting each other with the kind of practiced warmth that families like mine have perfected over generations. The air is full of, "You look wonderful," and "Can you believe it?" and the particular laughter of people who only see each other at weddings and funerals. My brother is getting married today, and I am genuinely, completely happy for him and Renata. What I am not happy about is what I know is coming. My name is Cassie. That's what my family calls me, short for Cassandra, which is actually funny if you know your Greek mythology, because Cassandra was the one nobody believed. I've been a materials scientist for 4 years, which means I spend my days figuring out how to make things stronger, lighter, more resilient. My work sits at the intersection of aerospace engineering and nanotechnology. Last spring, a polymer composite I helped develop was integrated into the thermal shielding of a satellite that is currently orbiting Earth at 400 miles per hour. My father thinks I work in a lab doing chemistry stuff. He is a man who built his self-worth with his hands, and I respect that about him more than he will ever know. He started at 22 with a tool belt and the used truck, and 30 years later he had a construction company with 60 employees, a 3-car garage, and an opinion about everything. He is not a complicated man. He believes in things you can touch: a finished house, a poured foundation, a firm handshake. He loves his children in the particular way of men who were never taught to say it out loud, which means he showed up to every one of my brother's baseball games for 12 years and coached my sister's soccer team and took my brother Marcus on job sites starting at age 14 so he could learn what real work feels like. I played with circuits in my bedroom and read physics textbooks with a flashlight under my covers and entered every science competition in a 50-mile radius, and my father was almost never there. Not because he didn't love me. I know that now, with the clarity that comes from a decade of distance and the therapist who charges 160 an hour. He didn't know what to do with me. I didn't fit the template. And when people don't fit the template, my father tends to look right through them. I got into MIT on a full merit scholarship when I was 17. I called home from the common room of my high school with shaking hands. My mother cried. My father said, "That's great, Cass," in the same voice he used when I told him I'd found a good parking spot. Then he asked Marcus if he wanted to come look at a job site in Bridgeport on Saturday. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself that for about 14 years. The ceremony is beautiful. Renata walks down the aisle in a dress that makes half the room audibly gasp, which is exactly what she deserves. My brother cries, which I did not expect, and it cracks something open in my chest in the best possible way. I cry too, quietly, dabbing under my eyes with the folded tissue I put in my clutch specifically for this moment, because I am a scientist and I plan for known variables. At the reception, I find my seat at table 4, family and close friends, and settle in next to my aunt on my mother's side. She squeezes my hand and tells me I look beautiful. I tell her she's the only honest person in this family, which makes her laugh. The first hour is fine. Better than fine, actually. The food is excellent. Short rib with a red wine reduction, which I eat too fast because I've been running on airport coffee since 5 this morning. I flew in from Houston. Nobody mentioned that when they were making seating arrangements, which is how I ended up next to my cousin's husband, who spent 20 minutes explaining to me what a material scientist is, which I know I am one. The speeches start after dessert. My uncle from Tampa goes first. He is funny and warm and tells a story about my brother at age 7 that makes everyone groan and then laugh. My mother goes next, and she is so genuinely lovely. She talks about how Marcus always protected the people he loved, how she watched him become someone she's proud of, How Renata is the person who taught him to slow down and actually look at things. I'm wiping my eyes again by the time she sits down. Then my father stands up. He's 63 and still built like the guy who used to frame houses himself. Broad through the shoulders, grey at his temples now. Wearing a tie that I know for a fact my mother picked out because he has owned the same three ties since 1987. He taps the microphone twice, clears his throat, looks out at the room with the expression he uses when he's about to say something he's been practicing. I'm not much for speeches, he says, and the room laughs because everyone's father says that. He talks about Marcus for a while. He talks about teaching him how to measure twice, cut once. Of course he does. He talks about watching him grow into a man who knows the value of showing up, of doing things right. He talks about Renata and how he could tell from the first handshake that she was solid, which I think is genuinely the highest compliment my father knows how to give. And then, I've got three kids, he says. Each one of them turned up different, he smiles. Marcus here runs his own contracting business now. I couldn't be more proud. My daughter Lee is a physical therapist, helping people every single day, putting her hands to work, making a real difference in people's lives. He nods at my sister, who smiles and lifts her glass. And then there's Cassie. He looks at me. The whole room looks at me. She's our, what do you call it, Cassette? Researcher? She works in a lab somewhere down in Texas, does experiments. He chuckles. Honestly, I'm still not sure exactly what it is you do, but he shrugs, a little laugh. Different strokes. Different strokes. 200 people laugh politely. My aunt's hand finds my knee under the table. My face is doing the thing it learned to do when I was 9 years old, holding everything very still, giving nothing away. He goes back to talking about Marcus. He wraps up the speech. He raises his glass and everyone raises their glasses, and the room fills with the sound of clinking crystal and congratulations. I drink my champagne in one swallow. Under the table, my hands are pressed flat against my thighs. My heart is doing something uncomfortable in my chest, some combination of anger and grief that I have felt so many times it has its own geography inside me by now. I know every hill and valley of this particular feeling. The thing is, and this is the part nobody tells you, it doesn't get easier. People say time heals things, but what time actually does is give you more context, more ways to understand why it happened, more capacity to articulate the shape of the wound. It does not make the wound smaller, it just makes you more precise about its dimensions. I am sitting at my brother's wedding, at a table surrounded by people I have known my entire life, and I am invisible. I have been invisible in this family for so long that most of them have simply accepted it as a fixed feature of reality. The way you stop noticing a piece of furniture that's always been in the corner. My bag is on the back of my chair. Inside it, there is a card I spent 40 minutes writing last week, a gift envelope, and a folded copy of something I almost left in Houston but packed at the last minute, mostly because I'm sentimental and partly I think because some part of me always knew I might need it. I didn't plan what happened next. I want to be clear about that. My father sits back down. The band starts tuning up. My cousin's husband leans over to ask me something about Houston traffic, and then Marcus is at my elbow. Hey, he says. He's still in his tuxedo, bow tie slightly loosened, the look of a man who has just survived the most important hour of his life and is now very ready for the open bar. He puts his hand on my shoulder. You doing okay? I'm great, I say. You look happy? I am happy. He squeezes my shoulder. Dad's just, you know how he is. I do know, I say. I've been studying it for 31 years. He winces a little. Cuss. Marcus, I'm fine. Go be with your wife. I mean that completely sincerely. He looks at me for a moment with those eyes that still look exactly like they did when we were kids, big and brown and unable to hide what he's thinking. Then he hugs me, a real hug, the kind he's been giving me since I was his little sister following him around the backyard. I'm glad you're here, he says against my hair. I mean that completely sincerely. When he leaves, I sit with my champagne glass and look across the ballroom at my father. He's laughing at something my uncle said. He's holding his wife's hand without thinking about it, The automatic reach of a man who has loved the same woman for 36 years. There is nothing villainous about him. There never was. That's the part that's always been the hardest. He just never learned how to see me. I reach into my bag and take out the folded paper. It's a printout. I've had it for 3 weeks, since the email arrived on a Tuesday afternoon while I was eating lunch at my desk. I remember staring at it so long, my food got cold. Then I called my postdoc advisor, who said, "I told you," in the voice of someone who has been waiting to say exactly that. Then I sat alone in the parking garage and let myself cry for about 8 minutes before I pulled myself together and went back to the lab because we had tests running, and the data doesn't care how you feel. I get up from my table. My father is at the bar now, ordering something, probably bourbon. Probably neat. I walk across the ballroom in heels I can actually walk in because I am a person who tests load-bearing capacity before committing to anything. My heart is doing that uncomfortable thing again. My face is doing the other thing. "Hey, Dad." He turns. He smiles. It is a genuine smile. He is not a cold man. He's just a limited one. "Cassie, you look nice." "Thank you." I hold out the folded paper. "I thought you might want to see this." He takes it, a little uncertainly, unfolds it. I watch his face. He reads slowly. My father is not a slow reader. He reads contracts and blueprints and supply orders every day of his working life. But he reads this slowly. I watch his eyes move down the page and stop, and move back to the top, and go down again. The paper is a letter. Specifically, it's an offer letter. The formal notification that a research team I've been part of for 2 years has been selected to lead the Materials Development Division for NASA's Artemis Infrastructure Program. It's the kind of thing that doesn't happen to people my age. My name is in the first paragraph. The words "exceptional contribution" are in the second. The NASA letterhead is at the top. The eagle and the blue circle. Unmistakable. My father looks up. He looks at me. Really looks at me in a way he hasn't, possibly in my entire adult life. "Cassie," he says, his voice is different. "The work I do in that lab in Texas," I say very quietly, so only he can hear me, "is going to help put people back on the moon." He looks down at the paper again. His jaw moves. "I've been doing it for 4 years, I say. I did it for 7 years before that in grad school. I've been doing some version of it since I was 9 years old, and I built a circuit board on the kitchen table, and you told me it was cute." I'm not angry. I'm surprised by that. I thought I would be at this moment. But I'm not. I'm just tired and honest. I know you don't understand it. I know it doesn't look like what you think work looks like. But it's real, Dad. It's the realest thing I've ever done. He doesn't say anything for a long moment. Behind us, the band starts playing, something slow and familiar, a song from the 80s that my parents danced to at their own wedding, if family legend is accurate. Through the crowd, I can see Marcus and Renata on the dance floor, forehead to forehead, completely absorbed in each other. "I didn't know," my father says finally. "I know you didn't." I take the paper back gently, fold it, put it in my bag. "I'm not asking you to apologize in the middle of Marcus's wedding. I'm not asking for anything right now, actually." I look at him steadily. "I just needed you to know, for once." He swallows. I watch something move through his face that I don't have a name for. Not quite guilt, not quite guilt. Something older and heavier than either. "The moon," he says. "The moon," I confirm. He sets his bourbon down on the bar. He opens his mouth, closes it, and then, very slowly, like a man who has spent 63 years learning one way of being in the world and is attempting, late, to learn another, he nods. Not a dismissal, not the nod of a man filing something away to forget it, a different kind of nod. The kind that means, "I heard you, I see you. I'm still working out what to do with that, but I heard you." It is the smallest possible gesture. It is more than I have gotten in 31 years. I go back to my table. My aunt asks if I'm okay, and I tell her yes, and this time I mean it differently than I did an hour ago. My cousin's husband asks me something else about Houston, and I answer him without really registering what I said. The band plays. The dance floor fills. At some point, my sister finds me and squeezes into the chair beside me and doesn't say anything, just hands me a glass of wine and puts her head briefly on my shoulder, which tells me she was watching. Later, much later, when the cake has been cut and the bouquet has been thrown and most of the older relatives have filtered out, my father finds me near the window that looks out over the inn's garden. It's dark outside and the lights in the hedges are very pretty, and I am tired in the specific way of someone who has felt too many things in too few hours. He stands beside me. We look out at the garden. I should have come to more of those competitions, he says. Not to me exactly. More to the window. I knew about them. Your mother always told me. I don't say anything. He's not wrong, and I'm not going to tell him he is. I didn't. He stops, starts again. I didn't know what you were doing up there, when you'd win. I didn't know what questions to ask, he pauses. That's not an excuse. I know, I say. I'm proud of you. He says it like he's lifting something heavy. I think I have been for a long time. I just didn't know how to say it. Know how to say it, he agrees. His voice is rough. We stand there for another minute, watching the lights in the garden. You should come to Houston sometime, I say finally. I could show you the lab. You could see what it looks like. I glance at him. There's a lot of equipment. Some of it's pretty impressive. He looks at me. There's something in his eyes that might be relief. Yeah? Yeah. I'd like that. I nod. I don't say, we'll see. And I don't say, we'll make it happen. Because both of those are ways of not saying anything. I say, I'll text you some dates when I'm back. Okay, he says. Okay, Cassie. It's not a resolution. It's not forgiveness exactly, or reconciliation. Those are bigger words than one conversation in a hotel garden earns. It's a door, maybe. Slightly open. More than it's ever been. I find Marcus before I leave and hug him for a long time, and he hugs me back, and I tell him that Renata is extraordinary, and he says, I know, right? In the voice of a man who still can't believe his own luck, which is exactly how it should be. On the Uber to my hotel, I take out my phone and open the email from Tuesday 3 weeks ago. I've read it probably 30 times. I read it again in the back of a car driving through a Connecticut town I grew up in and moved away from as fast as I could. The work we do in that lab is going to help people go places no one has gone before and come home safe. It's going to matter in ways I will spend the rest of my career measuring and documenting and building on. And it is mine, built from circuit boards on a kitchen table and flashlight physics and 14 years of making myself visible in rooms where I had to fight for the right to take up space. My father doesn't fully understand it yet. But tonight, for the first time, he tried. That's not everything, but it's not nothing either. And I have learned, slowly, imprecisely, through a lot of trial and error, which is actually just the scientific method applied to living, that some materials are brittle and some are ductile, and the difference is whether they can absorb force without shattering, whether they can bend just a little and hold. I think about that on the drive back. The garden lights. His voice saying I'd like that. The way a nod can carry 30 years of weight if you let it. I look out the window at the dark Connecticut streets and I let myself feel, quietly, the particular relief of a hypothesis finally tested. There's a version of that night I used to replay differently. In the old version, I said nothing. I drove back to my hotel, ordered room service, and cried a little in the bathtub. And by Monday, I was back in the lab, and the weekend was just one more thing I'd absorbed and filed away. That version happened a lot of times before this one. More times than I like to count. What changed wasn't that I finally got angry enough. Anger was never the problem. I had plenty of that. What changed was that I stopped being ashamed of what I'd built. That's a quieter shift than it sounds, and it took longer than it should have. But at some point, somewhere between my doctorate and the Artemis letter, I stopped apologizing. Internally, silently, constantly, for the fact that my work doesn't look like work to people who've never seen it. I stopped shrinking the thing I'd made so it would fit into a shape my father could recognize. What I did that night wasn't revenge. I want to be clear about that. I handed my father a piece of paper because I was tired and because I had finally decided that the truth deserved to take up space in the room. That's all it was. And what happened next? The nod. The garden. The words I'd waited 30 years to hear. That came from him. From something in him that was capable of change. Even at 63. Even after all that time. You can't force that. You can only create the conditions and see what a person does with them. I think about Cassie a lot. I think about my own younger self. The one on the kitchen floor with the circuit board and the absolute certainty that this thing in her hands mattered, even when nobody in the house was watching. That certainty is the thing I want to talk about, because it's the thing that's hardest to protect. The world will give you 100 reasons to doubt it. A father who says, "That's nice," and walks away. A family that claps for your siblings and goes quiet when it's your turn. Years of doing important work in rooms where nobody important to you can see it. What carries you through that? What carried me through it isn't stubbornness exactly, though you need that too. It's something more like integrity, the decision to keep doing the right thing, the honest thing, the rigorous thing, even when the return isn't visible yet. It's the willingness to develop your mind past the point where anyone around you can follow, and to not resent them for it. And it's the particular kind of endurance that doesn't harden you, the kind that keeps you soft enough to still hand your father a piece of paper at your brother's wedding, still hoping, still leaving the door open. Those three things together, the moral center that keeps you from becoming bitter, the intellectual drive that keeps you moving forward, the endurance that gets you to the finish line without using yourself, they don't guarantee a good outcome. My father might have looked at that letter and shrugged. That was a real possibility. But they guarantee that the outcome, whatever it is, belongs to you. That you did it with your whole self, cleanly, without compromise. I texted my father some lag dates last Tuesday. He wrote back in under 10 minutes, which is faster than he's ever responded to anything I'd sent him in my life. We'll see what happens. But for the first time, I actually want to find out,